What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. Here I'm sitting with John Earley, aka Red Dragonthorn, aka my brother-in-law, and we are going to talk about, well, I guess the announcement that Josiah made on Tuesday about the really OP combo that he discovered, and that we kind of took and made into a Type 2 version. John kind of put it all together. We've been talking about it and testing it, so now we're just going to, because it's out there already, we're just going to go do a big outline of it and just talk about.
We're going to go over what makes it work and how it all pieces together on the offense and the defense, and how it kind of all interlocks into a cohesive whole, which is something that Type 2 decks really haven't seen in the combo realm recently. In the years past, there were some ways that they did it, but this is kind of a new one just because of the structure of the combo that it was attempting to pull off, that it was able to play some cards you would normally not really ever have room for in a deck. So we'll go over all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to do a test draw on Lackey, just because we didn't feel like shuffling the deck 1,000 times just for fun. We would have done it in a tournament if we had to, but we just didn't feel like doing that in real life when we've got Lackey available. So we're going to do a run through on Lackey and just show the crazy turn one potential that it truly did have.
I mean, if you're in a tournament winning on turn one, you're going to have plenty of time to shuffle before the next
plenty of time, absolutely. All the time to shuffle.
With the 100 card deck in Type 2, it's kind of crazy having a combo that's as consistent as this one is on turn one. So it's pretty nuts. So we're going to go ahead and switch the camera here so that you guys will be able to see the cards we have.
So this is the offense laid out. We've laid out singleton copies of these cards, but we'll just kind of go over duplicates and multiples and stuff like that, just to kind of be able to see everything. So we're running a singleton, one with child. She's in there for two reasons. She can go grab Son of God or Second Coming to finish off the combo. You only get to play Son of God 6 times with all of your trickery searches, basically. So you only get to play it 6 times. You have to get to a one with child in order to play it the 7th time, either by going out and grabbing it or grabbing Second Coming to play it one last time.
Or just having Second Coming and playing it to search for Son of God.
Correct, exactly. Then you have Nunc Dimittis, which can be played on her, or it can be played on David or Moses. Moses is a musician, David's a musician, One with Child is a New Testament prophet. So there's 3 characters in the deck that can play the Nunc for a big look, 6 on One with Child, 7 on David and Moses, or 1 on David for a single cantrip if he is played on his meek side, which we'll get to that in a little bit here. So the power of Nunc Dimittis on the offense, and what we'll see replicated more on the defensive side, is the ability to stack the deck. This isn't a deck that actually is trying to draw the entire thing to have the combo pieces. It's looking for very specific cards. And the Nunc allows you to help stack the deck so that you can then draw the specific card that you're looking for. You take one and then you put one card on top of the deck that you want to draw and bury the rest, and then play one of your multiple draw cards to draw it.
Well, Nunc is a little bit different because you have to put all of them beneath the deck. So you don't actually get to stack the top.
Cool. I totally stacked the top when I was doing test runs of this, so I probably don't actually have a 95% goldfish win rate with this thing then. Whoops. Apparently I don't even know how to play the game. So then you've got Boaz, the Redeemer, who is always played on his meek side. He is never played as a ability character. He is always played meek, because he is then red to play all of the red offering enhancements. He can't play the Soldier's Prayer because he's not warrior class, but he can play all of the offering enhancements. He can play the Solomon's Dream to search, and he can play the Plumb Line, the Boaz Offspring, and obviously then he can play Kindness of Boaz, which is the primary drawing card on offense. You run 4 copies of Kindness of Boaz. You're only running 2 Boaz. So he's multicolor, he's red-white. So you're running 2 Boaz and you're running 4 Kindness of Boaz for a potential draw 8 off of those. Then you've got David, Heart After God. He is primarily played on his meek side. The only reason to play him on his non-meek side is if you're holding him and a Nunc and you want to look at 7. That would be a reason to play him on his non-meek side. Otherwise, he fulfills the red warrior class side to play Soldier's Prayer, as well as everything else that Boaz can play. He can play the Kindness of Boaz for a draw 1 in a pinch, but you really don't want to do that. If you're only drawing 1 with Kindness of Boaz, you're probably not going to get to where you need to be. So then we have Zadok. We're also playing a copy of Ahimaaz and a copy of Phineas. the 3 red teal priests that we introduced in Prophecies of Christ. They are all tabernacle priests. They can play the 4 copies of Zadok Anoints and the 4 copies of a Soldier's Prayer that you're running out of your reserve.
I think we doubled up on one of them too, just for...
We doubled up on one of them to have 4 total for a little bit of consistency, because they are one of the harder characters to search for. We have multiple ways of searching out the other heroes that we'll show you momentarily here, but you do have to draw the priests naturally. There isn't a good way to search for them, so we did double up on one. In initial lists, we were doubled up on all of them, but then we ran into some hand fog potential issues, and so we trimmed it back and were able to get to kind of a number that we felt comfortable with. So the main card that you are looking for with your Zadok Anoints, the whole point of everything that the offense is doing, as far as dropping character from the table, drawing Kindness of Boaz, using your Nunctimus, the whole point, the only card that you're looking for at the end of the day is Feast of Unleavened Bread. This card just came out in the Lineage of Christ set, and it is what makes this combo work in Type 2. So the whole combo is you banish all of the evil cards that you've played to accelerate out of your discard pile and go to the reserve to grab 4 copies of Soldier's Prayer and a copy of Solomon's Dream, as well as 5 of the dual class territory negates. So we'll show you those here. So this is Solomon's Dream. This is the other key card that makes this whole thing work. Solomon's Dream is if used by Solomon or a Meek hero, which is why you always play your Boaz as Meek. Lets you take a good card from the deck. If played in battle, you can draw cards, but we're never going into battle until we're ready to win the game with this deck. Literally, do not enter battle. If you enter battle, you have gone too far. Go to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. So Solomon's Dream is what we're looking for. And that can be played on Boaz, and it can be played on David when David is Meek. We originally had a copy of Solomon in here, and then realized that he was superfluous, and we didn't need him. So that's coming out of reserve. There is also one in deck that you have to grab at some point with the Zadok Anoints, but it allows you to open up space in the reserve to have 5 dual alignment negates. So this is Kinsman's Agreement. It is 2 copies in the reserve, and it is a territorial class negate. You play it as evil, and you use it to negate Solomon's Dream or a Soldier's Prayer. Typically, it's always Solomon's Dream that you use it on, rather. But when I play it out, I just kind of line them up with the cards in my test draws. I just basically laid them out on the table and made sure I matched up 1 for 1 with each one. But in a real game, you would use it to negate the Solomon's Dream. So then we have Speak Favorably, which is also brown, and it is another negate. And then we are also playing 2 copies of Jonah's Anger, God's Mercy, which will also be played as evil and negate. We also have a copy of Unsuccessful, which can be activated as an artifact and then functions as a negate. So you have some flexibility in which negates you go and grab in order to accomplish the combo. So for those of you who didn't read the boards and don't necessarily know exactly what combo we're talking about here, we're talking about a way to play Son of God 6 times in Type 2 by utilizing a misinterpretation of the rules and the rules that were just changed this year with Cascade Negate. So at one point, the way that the rules were written and looked at, it looked like if you played a dominant, if you searched for a dominant and then negated the search for it, if you'd already played the dominant, it would still go back to where it was searched for from. So the idea is you play the Solomon's Dream, you grab Son of God, you play Solomon's Dream, you search for Son of God, you play Son of God and redeem a soul. It's in your discard pile. Then you trigger the negate on Kinsman's Agreement to negate the last good enhancement played, Solomon's Dream, putting Son of God back into the deck. So now it's in the deck. And then you play a copy of a Soldier's Prayer and go get Solomon's Dream back. And then you play Solomon's Dream again to go get Son of God from the deck. Rinse and repeat. So that's why Feast is the most important card that you're looking for on offense, because it allows you to go into your reserve and in one fell swoop grab every piece of the combo. 4 copies of a Soldier's Prayer, 1 Solomon's Dream, and up to 5, depending on exactly how many you need. There's some in the deck that you may have drawn. There's a copy of Unsuccessful that you may have activated somehow. But however many you need of the Territory class negate cards to essentially combo out. Every other card on the offense here is just designed to help you accelerate. So we're playing a Throne of David to utilize a star ability to take David from deck or reserve. It tutors out a David for you. We're playing a Land of Moab. It can go get Boaz or David, either one. So it goes and grabs those. We are playing cards to tutor Land of Moab. We are playing Covenant with David, which can go get a site or a good fortress, so it can grab Throne of David. But honestly, if you're doing that, you're just trying to thin your deck at that point before you draw, because you're not really using Throne of David's special ability. You just hit the star on it. And then you've got Remerson Awe, which can also grab Land of Moab or either of the good fortresses. This is the only non-acceleration card on the offense. It's a copy of Solomon's Temple, and it is simply there to hold extra artifacts, which we'll get to our artifact section in a minute here. We're running some artifacts that you can activate in Temple that can help you get a little bit of acceleration. Honestly, don't really need them all that often, but the whole point of a combo deck, especially a one that's trying to combo out in a singular turn, is to be as broad as possible with your options. You don't want to lock yourself into a single line of play. You want to have multiple lines of play. One other card that Covenant with David and Remerson Awe can grab is Majestic Heavens, which is a soul gen piece. One of the biggest problems that a one-turn win combo has is generating enough lost souls to rescue. So you'll see that we have a ton of various soul gen pieces in the deck that we are looking to get. Majestic Heavens is one of them. If you don't end up with it, as long as you have enough souls on your opponent's side of the table, you don't need to burn a search on it specifically. But if you're to the point where you know you can combo out and you have an extra search, and you can use that to go get a soul. Here's some other acceleration pieces that we're playing. So we're playing Moses, Friend of God, for pretty much just one reason. You're just looking for that opening star to mulligan and throw away some cards that you maybe don't need. Extra copies of heroes, extra copies of evil characters, stuff like that, as well as honestly usually Moses himself. And then you draw some extra cards there to hopefully get more of your combo pieces to get rolling. He can, however, also play Nunk if necessary, so I can see keeping him in an opening hand, but typically I would throw him away. We're playing an Offering Your Son as a tutor for an artifact. Endless Treasures to draw 2 Endless Treasures into Shrine to help set up what the defense is doing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Or it can also get Bronze Laver, which is the card that you want to activate in Solomon's Temple to dump some evil out of your hand for extra draws. Emmaus Road gets Offering Your Son, or it gets delivered, or it goes and gets Solomon's Dream out of the deck, because there's one copy in the deck that you have to go get with this combo. So it can grab any of those super important cards. If you open it within your hand, you can also look and make sure your opponent isn't going to have a way to answer you, because really this deck is a 50-50 proposition. Either you hit the combo and you go off and your opponent can't answer you and you win, or you don't hit the combo or your opponent has an answer for you and you lose. But more often than not, you hit the combo. For the really super nuts draws, we have Feast of Booths. You have to be careful with this one because it also works by removing evil cards from the discard pile. You have to make sure you have enough fuel to fuel your Feast of Unleavened Bread. But if you have extra, Feast of Booths can help you draw additional cards. So that's the offense. So we're going to scoop all that up and we're going to lay out what the neutral cards are trying to do. Okay, so here are the neutral cards that we're playing. It's primarily a collection of souls, and it's pretty straightforward. Revealer, soul gen piece. Awake, either soul gen, or in rare situations, it can grab exiles. There are certain situations where you might have to play your singleton copy of Solomon's Dream from the deck in order to start your acceleration process, in which case Exile Soul can put it back on top to be drawn with a Kindness of Boaz or a Pretension or something like that. So then Darkness Soul generates an evil character for you. There are 4 specific evil characters that you're looking for to have at some point down on the table. He helps you grab one of them. Lawless does the same thing, looks at 6 cards and moves them over into moves into the bottom of the deck, and you grab an evil one from there, so either an evil character or one of the evil acceleration cards. Imitate can then trigger either Lawless or Awake if you draw it in your opening draw and then have it for the upkeep phase to potentially get you a second card into your hand from Lawless, or a second soul generated from the Awake Law soul, if that's what you end up needing, if you think you're going to end up needing some soul gen based upon what your opponent draws. Prosperity discards a card to draw 2. If you open with a superfluous evil card in your hand, you can discard that card to put a card in the discard pile for your fuel, 4 Feasts of Unleavened Bread, and then obviously the draw 2 is the draw 2. We talked about Majestic Heavens already. Hopper, I hope I don't have to explain that one to you guys. That's just a soul gen piece. So between the Awakes, the Hoppers, that's 4 semi-guaranteed. Hopefully Revealer hits something. Hopefully you can get an early Imitate on your opening draw and get an Imitate down on the table to imitate an Awake for a 5th. Majestic Heavens would be a 6th, and then you've got Hopper for a 7th. So you can generate every soul that you need if you hit the right combination of cards, but hopefully your opponent drew at least 1 or 2 for you to reduce the number of cards that you potentially need to hit on in order to get the souls on the table that you need to rescue.
And Hopper obviously makes the deck 2 cards smaller. So
right, this is obviously a 100-card deck with 16 Lost Souls in it with the 2 Hoppers, meaning that you're actually only playing an effective 84 cards that you have to meander through to get the pieces that you need. We touched on the artifacts briefly earlier. Bronze Laver can be activated in Solomon's Temple, revealing a number of evil cards from hand, underdeck them, and then draw an equal number. That's just a straight acceleration piece. That's dumping extra copies of characters that you don't need. There are 18, 19 or so evil characters in the deck list, but really you're only looking for 3 or 4 of them. They can fulfill a couple different roles depending on which ones you have, and so you really don't need a ton of them, and so you can dump extra copies with Bronze Laver and then draw cards. Endless Treasures draws 2 and goes and gets Shrine. Shrine shuffles away a card and then grabs you a Greet to play your Worldly Wisdoms, which is probably the most important piece on the defense, I would say, because you can chain search them. It's the easiest way to get a lot of evil cards into your discard pile for your fuel. Worldly Wisdoms aren't there as 4 searches for 4 evil cards. They're there to chain themselves into the discard pile so that you can then perform your combo. So you really don't care how many of them you open with in your hand. If you open with 2, great, fantastic. That's an extra pretension or making sure you have the right evil characters. But really, at the end of the day, you're only looking for 1, and then it's just going to chain out the rest of them. We touched on Majestic Heavens already. So the neutrals are fairly simple. We will just touch real quick on 3 woes. There are not very many dominants in this deck. The typical Type 2 deck does play a lot of dominance. You can play 14 with the souls in a standard 105, or you can play 15 if you want to go to 112. This deck is only playing 6. It is playing Son of God, Second Coming, and Harvest Time on offense. It's playing 3 woes on neutral. Then it's playing Mayhem and Vain Visions on defense. The 3 woes is just there because it is a powerful answer in case you do end up going second to some of the things that could hurt you, like a Territory Class Jonah or a Golden Calf on the opponent's side. Unfortunately, it can't counter Covenant with Death, which is a big problem. There's a little bit of debate as to whether or not 3 woes should be Destruction or perhaps Chronicles. The initial list had all 3 of them, but there just isn't room with as tight as this list needs to be. We touched on Delivered earlier. Delivered can be grabbed by Emmaus Road, and it's just a way to go get an artifact, typically the Endless Treasures that you're looking for to get a draw 2 and go to Shrine with that combo. And then Lord Delivers, I Am a Dog, is in the deck because it can be grabbed by Soldier's Prayer for some reason if it needs to be. And just to make sure you have enough negates across the span of things. Typically, you should only really need the 5 from reserve, but if you happen upon 1 in deck, then draw it just naturally, then you've got a little bit more options with how soon you can combo out and whatnot.
Right, and since you mentioned Harvest Time, we should maybe touch on that, because I was looking at it and doing the test draws. I was like, oh, I don't need Harvest Time. Like, if I use a Hopper or generate a Lost Soul some other way, then I can play it, but John pointed out that you can use it in between your Son of God rescues. So if they get to, 6 Lost Souls out, then you can rescue those 6, play Harvest Time, and then get the 7th. So I think that was a good note. And then one other thing I thought of when I was doing the test draws is because does negating a draw work the same way as negating the search, or the cards? So if you draw Son of God.
Correct.
Okay, so then there are 2 Zerul's Plumb Lines, which you can also top deck a good card from deck. And I realized that if you top deck your Son of God and then you play Kindness of Boaz, or even the Bronze Laver. So you negate Kindness of Boaz with one of your dual alignment negates, or you can negate the Bronze Laver with Worldly Wisdom, which negates a sight or artifact. So that was one other piece that I don't know if it's really worth building around, but something worth noting that it would work the same or a similar way there.
Right. The trick with those is that's probably something you're going to hit before you're ready to pull everything out of your reserve. And so you would also have had to have hit a negate in the deck in order to do that bonus or extra one, so to speak. So that's something just to be aware of. You can't just play that and not have that negate handy. You have, anytime you play Son of God in this combo, you have to have that negate ready to undo what you just did.
Right. Yeah, so that's why I was thinking mainly Worldly Wisdom to negate the Bronze Laver, since you got so many of those. But now we're going to scoop up the neutral cards and we're going to take a look at the defense.
So this is the defense. There's a lot going on in the defense, but the primary thing that we're looking at here is Epicurean Philosopher and Worldly Wisdom. So Worldly Wisdom is kind of what makes this whole thing work. Negate a sight or artifact. You have to be a little careful when you play them. Ideally, you play these before you have any sights down, because you don't want to negate the sight that put your Boaz in play. Realistically, it's okay if you have to do that because you have enough draw that you will redraw another search for him or something like that. But just working on it, you do have to negate a sight or artifact. So I like to play those early on before I've got other pieces sitting on the table, if I can.
Yep.
So then it has to be used by a Scholar Philosopher. So we're running singleton Epicurean Philosophers and the 2 Axe Philosophers. One's a Scholar, one's a Philosopher. And you could run any combination, but the point is we're running 3 because we have a lot of ways to go get artifacts and a lot of ways to activate Shrine to go get the one that we need. Then the other piece that we have that's a big one is the Pretension Draw. Also have to be careful with this because you reveal 2 good cards from your hand, which you're always going to have 2 good cards. That's not the problem. But you have to set aside a hero. So ideally, you play these before you have your heroes on the table as well. Now, in practice, it doesn't always work out that way. You may have to set aside a hero. That's okay. You have backup copies of most of the heroes that you need. Just probably don't set aside Boaz if you can help it. That would be problematic. Or if you do set aside Boaz, make sure that it's before you activate Shrine so you can shuffle them back in with Shrine.
Right.
So you've got options there. There are 6 Pharisees in the deck.
Yep, I think so.
I think it's 6. There's 2 copies of Sanhedrin because he has Black Brigade to play the Black Brigade negates as well as Wages. So there's 2 copies of him and there's 1 copy of 4 others. 2 of them have discard abilities and can be grabbed by Wages as a setup way. Otherwise, there are other ways to get the Pharisees out as well. So then you have the next piece, False Leaders. So False Leaders is brown-gray. He can play a bunch of the negates. You have 2 of him. And then there are a couple other, I think there's 1 other in this deck that is brown-gray as well. And then the Lion Prophet is in there. Yep, thank you. He is playing this False Piece. False Piece lets you go get an OT card except a Dominant. So he grabs that from deck or reserve. He's going to grab from deck. And he is what sets up your various other pieces. He can grab some of the evil characters out of the deck for you. I think there's 1 that he can grab. He can grab out your Vain Vision or your Mayhem. That can grab out any of the offensive pieces you're looking for. Oh, yeah, sorry. He can't grab a Dominant. We'll edit that part. Honestly, I don't really remember what I grabbed for False Piece. I usually just grab another False Piece. Zadok, yeah. So
or the negates.
Yeah, the primary card you're really looking at with False Piece is the Zadoks or the Solomon's Dream. I can go right to Solomon's Dream and grab that if you're to that point.
Or the Feast.
Or the Feast. Yep, all of that stuff. There's two false pieces, and so I typically chain them. So you're going to chain your 4 Worldly Wisdom to get 4 evil cards in the discard pile. You're going to chain your 2 false piece. That puts 6 in the discard pile. In a perfect world, you need 10 in order to get everything. So that's 6 of them right there. You're running 2 copies of Balaam's Prophecy, which is territory class, and can grab a star card. That can grab your Emmaus Road, your Delivered. It can grab your Solomon's Dream. It has a lot of potential targets, as well as helping you to stack the deck. So that's the real key there. The next 2 cards that we're going to talk about, Balaam's Prophecy, can top deck the rest in any order to make sure that you draw the one card that you need before you move to another top deck method. So then here's the big one, Divination. So there are 4 copies of Divination, and when Divination is played, it puts an evil card in your hand, so hopefully a Worldly Wisdom, a False Peace, a Balaam's Prophecy, a Pretension, something like that. Or if you don't quite have all your characters yet, it can grab a character, it can grab one of the negates out of the deck. It has all sorts of valuable targets, and then it can bury the cards that you don't need out of the remaining 5. So it buries the duplicate copies of the characters, it buries the sites after you've already got your site searches done, and then it puts cards on top that you want to draw. So there are 3 Magicians in the deck. There's a False Prophet, a Damsel with Spirit of Divination, and a Profane Daughters. And the reason that it's those 3 is because all 3 of those are part of the False Prophet theme and count towards your Vain Vision count. Vain Vision lets you look at the top 6 and top deck or under deck, whatever you don't take, you get to take up to X. Typically, it's only going to be 2 or 3, depending on what you have on the table. But under certain circumstances, it could go and grab 4 or 5 cards if you needed them. Mayhem is Mayhem. I hope I don't need to explain Mayhem to you. It's empty your hand out as much as you can and then play it. Here is the other last piece of the defense. False Prophets can be played, counts towards your Vain Vision count, can play some of the enhancements in the deck. It can play the False Prophecy, or the False Peace rather. It can play Balaam's Prophecy, but it's primarily there just to go grab a copy of Unsuccessful as a negate option. So it's just another option that you can get to reduce the amount of cards that you need to go grab from the reserve. Because if you only need to go grab 9 or even 8 cards from the reserve, it means that you don't have to get through as much of the Worldly Wisdoms, the Divinations, the False Pieces. You don't have to generate as many of those into the discard pile as you might. 2 other Territory Class search cards here. Wages can grab a whole slew of things. You can grab a couple of the Pharisees because they have discard abilities. It can grab out a couple of other cards. It can grab any of the negates from the reserve or the deck. So that's very versatile. And then here's an interesting one. We're running a singleton, because it's Tri-Brigade, Corrupted Temple. Simply as a way, if you get this card early on, it sets up some pretty nice abilities for you. It allows you to activate your Shrine and your Bronze Laver in your Temple, which then would allow you to activate an Unsuccessful on the Artifact pile instead of having to go get a False Prophet. So it just gives you a lot of added flexibility, as well as tutoring out a single card. It can also be grabbed by Wages because it technically has a discard ability on it. The last card on the defense we're going to talk about is a starter deck card, Sorrow of Mary. On the rare situation where you end up with both Son of God and Second Coming in your hand, that is not ideal. Most players will be like, cool, Son of God, Second Coming, this is great. You do not want that in this deck. If you somehow are in the middle of comboing and draw without stacking your deck first and end up with both of those in your hand somehow, you cannot combo. I suppose you could. You could
play Son of God and then... Well, no, you'd still
no, because Second Coming would still put it in your hand. You are stuck. So you have to then get to a Sorrow of Mary and underdeck one of them. And we kind of joked when we were building the deck and testing it and refining it that your opponent's going to be very confused if you play Sorrow of Mary and underdeck your own Son of God. They're going to be like, what is he up to? And know that something crazy is about to happen.
I think they'll figure it out by the time you're playing all the different brigades and the drawing cards.
Yes, you would certainly hope so. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of honestly really looking forward to deck check this year just to see the expression on my deck checker's face and be like, what is going on right now? But that's the deck in a rather long nutshell. So I hope that you got something out of that, some systemology behind why the defense works, because it all flows into the other pieces. The Worldly Wisdoms can grab the Magicians can grab the Pharisees draw the cards that you have stacked with the Magician cards, stuff like that. It's all interlocked and interconnected, and then it has some flow back to the offense as well. Some of the offense helps to set up the defense, and the defensive stacking cards help set up your draw pieces as well. So it's all kind of interlocked in a way that's not really possible unless your only goal is to get to one specific card. Your typical deck, you can't do this. You can't be so splash like this because you actually have to play the game. This deck isn't designed to play the game as the game is meant to be played. It's designed to do something just completely different. So we're going to go through a test draw on Lackey here. and hope that it's one of the 9 out of 10 where we get the combo. If it's the 1 out of 10 where we don't, it's going to be a little awkward. But
Just edit that part out.
well, we'll just edit that part out, guys, and try again.
Just take one every time.
Take one every time, and you'll get to see kind of how the decision making flows about when you grab certain pieces and how it kind of all works in real life, quote unquote.
So get your lackey games in with the deck before the rule change happens.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so here's actually take 2. The first time we tried it, it was a
dud.
It was a misfire.
It was the 1 in 10, guys. The deck is not perfect. It is not unbeatable. Like I said, it is very much still somewhat of a coin flip.
But I mean,
it's probably a weighted die roll if we're being honest.
turn 2 combo isn't really worse.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you'd still be in decent shape. So this looks like a little bit better of an opening.
Nope, we're still in trouble here.
You got wages to.
Oh, there we go.
Philosophers.
We hit a worldly wisdom. We're good.
Wages to grab a Pharisee.
We're good, guys. We got there.
All right, so revealer obviously would reveal the top 2. Hopefully hit a lost soul. There's no star abilities.
Yep. And we're going to grab an unsuccessful out of the reserve with exiles, which we'll potentially honestly underdeck later with Lava, just to get a draw. But we'll see how this all flows here.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a problem.
Treasures and be okay.
Right, but we can't play endless treasures into shrine because we open with shrine in the hand too.
Well, that's okay. Shrine can just go on corrupted temple, and if we Lava later, we can underdeck unsuccessful, and then
endless treasures do it. Yeah,
unsuccessful.
Nice. So this is definitely one where we're going to lead with defense.
Yeah. So that guy's got to go out, and then could do Worldly Wisdom right away, but I think we might be better off just playing Wages to grab a Pharisee, and then do. Oh, I guess we don't. We only have
So
one.
we only have one good card. That's problematic. So Wages could grab a Pharisee, but it's better off to grab one that negates to put a second good card in our hand.
True.
And then we can use Worldly Wisdom to grab a Pharisee once we chain those out, and then we can start playing pretensions.
Yeah. Or
we should also play the Corrupted Temple right now.
We don't have any character. Right?
Oh.
Brown, pale green, and orange. But I mean, the other option is after we play Wages, grab a. Or if we play stuff down and then use Worldly Wisdom to grab Mayhem. That was something I did in the test draw.
Yes.
You kind of just play everything down and then you get a
right.
6 basically.
Yeah, that's probably a better play here in the long run.
But I guess I don't know. I don't think we'd be able to play too much.
Well, we can play all the artifacts down, face down. We can empty our hand of everything except for the Boaz draw card. And honestly, we could still go to the pretensions. We could Wages out a Pharisee, play the pretension for a D1. I don't know, that feels bad. This run's tricky. This is not ideal. We've hit 2 tricky runs in a row, guys. Maybe we're showing that this deck wasn't actually that good, and we didn't need to be worried about anything, and we didn't need to change the rules, and it was fine. It's fine, guys.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I literally did at least 15 or 16 test draws, and it hit it literally every time that I test drew with it. It was insane. It was completely crazy. Jaden did a few real-life test draws of it, and he was hitting it very consistently as well. So I promise, we're not making this up. It's legit.
The first time it was second turn, second turn going second. So I needed 2 draw 3s, which was kind of
a little slower than a one-turn win combo wants to be.
Yeah, but then the other 3, it was first turn, or 8 cards. So I think if we just grab one of the Pharisees, Trapping Pharisee has a discard ability.
Yep.
So we can send that to bottom. I guess we need to shuffle first.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, it's all random.
I usually choose a reserve, or I usually choose one of the options on Wages that lets it end up in the discard pile to put an evil card in the discard pile. I don't usually underdeck it.
That'd probably be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just choose to discard a hero in battle.
Yep.
And
then it goes to the discard pile. That's 1.
Yep. So then I mean, if we did go Mayhem, we could just shuffle Unsuccessful in that way. So then we can activate Endless Treasures afterwards.
Yep, I like that.
So these two go down. Would have been nice if
We need to chain out the Worldly Wisdoms.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to do that in the Mayhem. Do we play the Pretension for 1 here? Because we don't have to target a hero right now? That feels good.
Yeah, I think so. So reveal that 1 card, draw 1. The Prophecy is
That's not what we wanted.
But I mean, if we
But
hit
it's gray.
the star card,
Yeah.
so I think we play that
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
6. So no star cards. And nothing to draw, so that's kind of... Alright, so while John was on a phone call, I had a little bit of time to think, and...
Which is something you will not have in a tournament, so make sure that you know what you need to do.
Well, it wasn't a whole lot of time before I figured it out, but so we didn't find any star cards here. It would have been really nice to find like a Boaz to play Kindness of Boaz, but I did realize that since we can top deck the rest in any order, so we did see Mayhem, and we can put False Leaders on top as well. We could put Awake down, but it would be drawing by our special ability. So we just send these back to the top, and then we just go ahead and activate Endless Treasures there. So what that gets us is we can send Endless Treasures to the bottom of the deck. We can activate it Unsuccessful from reserve, so we've got plenty in there. And then we get to draw 2. So now with the False Leaders, you have the brown evil character to play Corrupted Temple on. So you can grab Solomon's Temple from deck. It is. That gets placed there. And then we can just
turn that one over.
Yeah.
You no longer care about it.
Right. Would be nice if we could discard it somehow, but not really a way to do that. And then what do we want to grab with Worldly Wisdom before we play?
A Magician. A Magician, so
Yes.
we can play Divinations.
Yep. Okay, I think that's...
Because then we'll have all of our options available to us for evil characters.
Yep. Now the question is, do we Worldly Wisdom out, or do we leave 3 in there so that we can maybe draw some up in Mayhem?
I think you want to slim them out so that the potential targets for your Mayhem don't include them, so that you have more opportunities to get other tutor pieces.
Sure. Yeah, so we can use Worldly Wisdom to search for Worldly Wisdom. I guess the problem here is that you have to
we're going to negate unsuccessful.
So that's kind of a...
So we're going to have to end up going and getting 5 negates in the long run here.
Yeah. Another one. One more. Yeah, type 2, you need like a search function for the deck.
There it is.
Right, so.
And then False Prophet. False Prophet. I guess we already played Wages.
Yeah.
So False Prophet doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, so I think Profane Daughters, they just have another brown option.
Sure.
Doesn't
really matter.
Yeah. Unless we grab Profane Daughters with False Piece.
Yeah,
so
we'll grab
Damsel can
Damsel.
only grab with, take an evil card or something.
Sure.
So
if you pull open the discard pile real quick here. So we have 7 evil cards in our discard pile right now.
Yeah.
We need to get to 10. So we're pretty close if we can get some of the good stuff rolling here off
Mayhem
of our Mayhem
will be
here.
8 too.
Yep, Mayhem's going to be an 8. So we are pretty close already.
I'm going to do that and throw that in there, shuffle, and draw 6.
There we go. That's what we're talking about.
So there's, the 2 more cards that we need. So now we just have to hit a...
Nope, we just lost. We do not have a way to get back to the good side now.
Unless we get delivered. Gotta get lucky.
Didn't we play delivered?
Did we?
Or was that last game?
No,
that was last game.
That was in the first one.
That was in the fail run.
Alright, so... We'll see if we get lucky here. I mean, pretension also is a good
Oh, yep. For
draw.
protection, gets back to the good stuff.
Yes, we want that, and then do we want to keep the other protection on
Yep.
top?
Yep. So we
grab
keep the
it
other
with
protection on
divination?
top and we'll grab it with the second divination. We don't have. We have one good card to reveal.
Right.
Okay. So do we leave Son of God on top? So that we. Oh no. Dude, do we leave Son of God on top, guys?
Oh.
What do you think? I was saying, do we so leave the other good card then? That way we draw one,
Yep.
and we take the good card, and then the second pretension draws two,
Yep.
and
Okay.
then the rest go to the bottom.
So we want these two. Oh no, because we'll only draw one of these.
Right. But we're playing a second divination here to grab the
Oh
pretension.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the rest of these go to the bottom, and it doesn't really matter what order. We can't activate endless treasures again. So so another divination. And
Oh wow. There's the feast that we need, but we don't have any heroes.
yeah, that's kind of crazy. So let's put the feast on top instead.
Yeah.
And then we can send the rest of these to bottom.
What? I wonder if we want that. I guess if we hit one hero, the problem is it has to be the right hero now. It has to be David. If we're only going to hit one hero on our pretension draws, so basically at this point we're gonna play pretension and draw one, and get a good card, and we're gonna play pretension and get two random cards, and out of those two random cards, one of them has to be David or a way to get David.
Which I mean we've got a few of those.
Yep.
I was thinking, or I don't think this version actually has the Reverence and Awe, which should, I think, be one of the David's Descendants copies, because it does basically the same function, except you can grab a multicolor sight as well.
Which would grab
Which would grab Land of Moab,
Moab. Yeah.
or Majestic
So
Heavens.
it's possible that we got there, but I think this was actually another failed run. We'll see here in a second.
Yeah, so the rest of these will go to the bottom as well. And not drawing the good cards kind of
Was problematic
slowed us
there.
down. And we got 3 Pharisees in our Mayhem draw.
Yeah,
So we only
that
get
hurts.
one from this
From this one.
but then as we have 2 good cards, we can reveal 2 and draw 2.
Wow.
We got every single piece we need except the hero.
Yeah. We don't have a labor?
Nope.
No, we have 2 unsuccessfuls and a shrine. Yep. Alright, guys. Failed again. We can get one. We can get one soul. So if we pass the turn here, so this is our turn 1. So if we pass the turn, and then on our second turn, what does our draw 3 look like?
That's fine.
Yep.
Because we get false piece.
So depending on what the opponent did on their turn, if they didn't play a Jonah or a Sheol or a Covenant with Death or something along those lines, now we have play. So we can play the false piece and we can go get David, who can play every enhancement that we need. So David can play the feast, he can play the dream, he can play everything. So depending on what exactly, so he's going to be meekified. Depending on what your opponent did on their turn, if they didn't establish a counter, which granted they get to do a bunch of their own setup, and they probably have a pretty good clue what you're doing now. It's possible that you got there on turn 2 on this run. What does your discard pile look like?
The nice thing is that they
we
get
have second coming
to grab 3 woes to stop one of their counters.
Correct. So any of the negatable counters we can answer with second coming here. So that's a pretty good point.
And then also Divination, which you don't really need at this point, but this card we've got 13 evil cards, so that's more than enough to go ahead and just go off with Feast.
Yep.
The one thing you have to make sure, though, is that
you have enough room.
Cards in your hand.
Correct. You are going to grab 10 cards out of the reserve, so you have to make sure. Well, Divination is going to add a card to your hand.
That could be a character. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't really matter at this point, but
yeah.
So you can do Feast, just banish 10 evil cards, and then they're from your discard pile and go to reserve. And you want these 5 and these 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, I mean, we probably won't go through all the motions.
Yeah, we'll go through
here,
all the
but-
motions. We'll lay them out on the table and line them up, each negate with each
Yeah.
soul, basically.
So we've got, of course, the thing I guess with doing doing the second coming to grab.
If you have the second coming into woes, then you still need to find a woman with child at some point.
Yep.
But you have some options for that. We've got a divination we can play to go look at some stuff. We can reactivate our endless treasures now for a draw 2. So we've got choices. If they had a counter card that we needed to answer with woes.
And the nice thing about it being second turn now is that unsuccessful is no longer negated.
Correct. So we're gonna
do that.
So each of these, a soldier's prayer, goes and gets Solomon's dream from the discard pile, and then you negate Solomon's dream with the negate.
Yep. So then at the end of this, we'll have 6 lost souls, and then Son of God will be back in our deck, and then we can play
Second coming to go get it.
Grab Son of God. So second turn, that's pretty good. I don't know. Do we want to do another one to try to show first?
Yep,
turn?
we're gonna do one more try here,
Run
guys.
it back.
Yep, we're run it back one more time. This deck is, I mean, we were in the middle of refining it when we're gonna shuffle the deck. Shuffle up here. There's still a few pieces that are incorrect in the long run here that we would need to look at. That's a decently nice combo there. There we go.
Awake.
That's what we're talking about.
7, 8. And not really any great pieces here though, because we don't have any evil characters and no priests.
No priests. Yep, that is sufficiently awkward.
So this is one of those first turns where
you
might just go into battle with David, grab a priest from your deck,
Yep,
and then you can maybe get to it in your discard phase.
correct. Especially because you have Boaz in your hand, so you have a meek hero that can play the dreams and all that stuff. And we are going to go get a priest to play the Zadok Anoints, and the priest can all play the Soldier's Prayer. So yeah, this is one where I would say we're going to look at a discard phase application of it, which is one of the beauties of the deck. This is going to be another one where you're probably going to resolve it on turn 2. You're probably not quite going to get there all the way on turn 1, but on turn 2, I feel confident that you would get there again with the options that you have.
And the nice thing about David's meek side is that he's a nice stalemate hero. So if they don't play anything, and you're obviously not going to play anything, so you might be able to go back. They might discard him, but in this case, we got the heroes in need, so it doesn't really matter
Right.
if he dies.
Yeah. So we'll just say that he died, and then we go to our discard phase.
So you can go and play down Zadok and Zadok Anoints.
Yep.
And I think.
I just played double Zadok Anoints right here. It's just do all your searches in one action.
Yeah.
And we're going to go get 2 Kindness of Boaz.
Yep. I
Right?
think so. Unless we want to grab one of these and 1 Kindness of Boaz to stack our top card, get a different good card. But I guess I don't know.
I don't think there's another good card that we want at this point.
True.
Unless there's another Kindness of Boaz. Because we don't have a Prophet for Nunk.
Yep, you're right. Okay, so just grab both of these.
Yep.
There's a bit of discard, so we get shuffled. And Boaz is going to be meek. And I'll just play, I guess we'll do one at a time just
Yep.
because could draw evil character and want to play Divination first. Some Exiles, which is grab an unsuccessful, might as well.
Yep.
So we didn't hit any evil characters there.
Nope.
So I'm gonna try again. There's a Prosperity, which is always good. There's a Moses.
And that's what we needed in the opening there. So we're going to discard the second priest there for the draw 2 on Prosperity.
Or do we want an evil card? No, we want to play all those evil cards.
Yeah, we want to play all those. There's a
And
shrine.
There's a shrine.
Got there. Whew, we got there, guys. It was close, but we got there. Play the Moses down. The Moses is what you want to shuffle.
Okay. Cool. So play Moses. We shuffle him with shrine. Just go this way. Grab one of these epic philosophers.
They are epic. They are philosophers.
I just did all 3 Epicurean philosophers. Didn't bother with the apostles, guys.
I thought so. There is actually a legitimate reason to bother with the apostles, guys. Epicurean is 3/2. If your opponent is running Crown of Thorns for some reason, I don't know why, but technically speaking, there is a reason to consider the apostles, guys.
And one of them is meek too, so you can get some Goshen action. Works on defense too.
So we have 2 false piece here. So I wonder if we worldly wisdom into a false leaders, and then play the false pieces to go get things.
We do profane daughters because you can also play divination.
Right. Because I don't think we actually want a pretension just yet, because I think we need. Maybe we shouldn't have been so hasty to discard the Phineas, like I suggested.
Oh, right.
Because we're going to end up setting aside heroes here that might be. I think we can set aside the Zadok and be okay.
Yeah.
Although we need him to play these Soldier Prayers. So
We'll probably get another day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here. We're not quite across the finish line yet. We're rolling. There's one. We're rolling, but we're not quite there.
All right. Profane daughters too. So much less satisfying than going through your deck or like a physical deck. Unlike you, just going through. All right, so let's do that, and then do we do divination first?
I think we do the false pieces first. Honestly, it's possible the false pieces go and get 2 more kindness of the last 2 kindness of Boaz.
True. I know we've got good cards.
Right, and then we potentially.
Retention.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think your opponent in a tournament will thank you for doing things together, as long as they don't have a response. Because when you keep on searching and shuffling like this, can be kind of annoying. But you don't really have to worry about timing out, I don't think, so should be okay. I think we want to play Pretension first. No, we don't have a Pharisee.
So we don't have a Pharisee yet.
All right.
So, hold on. And now we play the Divination.
Yeah.
To stack the deck.
Yep. All right, so no Pharisee. One evil card.
Yep. So we grab the Zadok, or sorry, we grab the Woes,
yep.
And then we put the Zadok on top.
Yep. We want the Boaz too, so that we can set aside the other Boaz.
No, because we still can't play the Boaz. We can.
Right.
Right. Yeah. We're still in trouble there. What does David's Descendant do? It grabs a Fortress. How many evil cards do we have in our discard pile?
6.
6. So we do need 7 after the divination hits.
Yep.
We're in our discard phase, so we can simply discard the woes. That's 8. We can discard the unsuccessful. That's 9, and we can just discard a pretension. That's 10. But we still need to play 1 to draw the Zadoks. I'm just going through. Oh no, we have 2. We've got the 2 Boaz still. The 2 kinds of Boaz. So yeah, so top deck the Zadoks, under deck everything else.
Yeah.
We don't have the Dream yet either. We're not quite there. Right. We're not quite there, guys. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay, so Divination's done.
Yep. Woes is in our hand.
Oh yeah, I forgot to grab that.
It's on the table.
Oh, I did grab it. That was Justin did that to me in a game the other day. It was just stacked the deck with Divination, forgot to take a card. I was like, wait, did you? Take one. All right.
And now we play Kindness of Boaz. Draw 2.
David's nice to see.
David's good because now we can set aside both of those heroes now.
Yep.
So we can play both pretensions straight up after we play the Zadok.
Yep. And the other kindness.
Yep.
So
with this, we're going to grab Feast of Unleavened Bread. And then shuffle the deck. Okay. And now we're going to play Kindness of Boaz and draw 2.
We
don't really need to do that at this point.
So then, we drew a Pharisee.
That's good. We needed that. That would have been a little awkward.
All right. And then also, I mean, we've got, if we had excess evil cards, we could also play Feast of Booze if we needed to.
Which,
so we wouldn't have been completely out.
We're going to set aside Boaz first. We're still not quite there. So set aside Boaz first. And draw 2. Oh, there's one with a child. So now we're there. Yeah. Now we don't need the... Oh, no, we still need the dream.
Yep.
No. That's fine. That's fine. We can do it with Second Coming.
That's true, yeah.
And so now we are there. Now we don't need the second dream.
Right, because we can just do 5 and then play it and search.
Yep.
So
we hit it in the discard phase.
So we've got 9 cards right now.
Yep.
So,
but we're in the discard phase, so discard the Pharisees that we don't need.
Yep. That's I guess a nice thing about doing it in discard phase.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're here. So
we're gonna play a Meek David here.
We're gonna do the Feast, Banish, and grab the combo. So in this case, we just have these 5, and then 1 negate for each of them. So Son of God will be, or I guess Second Coming will be back in the deck. So we start out, before we do any of this, we play Son of God, Rescue Lost Soul, and that's in our discard. And then for each of these, we grab Second Coming, and I have to go back to Son of God. And then we end up with Second Coming back in our deck.
And 6 Lost Souls redeemed. And so then we go to our turn 2 when we push one with Child and grab Second Coming for the rescue.
All right. And because we grabbed Second Coming, we could play 3 Woes as evil to negate one with Child.
We could.
And play Second Coming again. It would send Second Coming back to that. Doesn't work if it's Son of God, because then she becomes CBI. So again, not quite turn 1, but pretty close. I mean, you're 6-0 after turn 1. Basically, your opponent has to establish a search counter, and it has to be a hard search counter. It can't even be a soft search counter. They have to stop you from searching. They can't just punish you for searching. They have to stop you from searching. And most of those that I know of, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Hezekiah's Signet Ring, which Woes can negate. But then, I mean, so Shield, Jonah, and Babylonian Merchants, I think, are kind of the most popular, and I think all of those would also do it. Because you're searching so much, they can shuffle your heroes, or capture them, or Shield interdeck loss.
Right, except that so that was true for the second round that we laid out on the table. This is the 3rd time that we've done this, and on this one, we're good because we're on turn 1. The turn 2 push of One with Child, the only thing we care about is a hard counter. So let them shoal. There's plenty. Hopefully, there's plenty of souls on the table. Let them Jonah. Let them shuffle something. Who cares? Because then you're just gonna play it and win. So you really don't care about counters in this round much at all. We actually got this I would say is probably what your ideal, not ideal. Obviously, ideal is you just do it all in your prep phase and win.
Yeah.
But this is probably a more likely outcome more often than not.
Yeah. This is kind of maybe the peak of the bell curve for turn wise.
Yeah.
Discard phase, I mean, made it a lot easier. One of the initial cards we had before the Greeks and stuff was just using gates, and then it's like we don't have enough evil cards in discard, we can just gates until we get there.
and then you run the risk of hitting Son of
Yeah.
God.
And in the
Second
very
couple
initial
keys.
build of that, there were actually more cards you needed to get. You needed to get the gates out, you needed to get the heroes out, you needed to get the feast out, and all that stuff. And I went back and said, this is silly. Let's just play a bunch of character class evil cards that we know are going to end up in the discard pile.
Right.
And honestly, it's a trick that I picked up from JD a couple years ago. JD ran a Mayhem deck in Type 2, and he did the same thing where he would just chain Worldly Wisdom, literally just to slim his deck by that many cards. And I realized that the same could be applied to this combo, and you could just slim your deck by those cards and put those 4 cards in your discard pile as fuel for your combo later.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, basically got to the point where I was like, oh, so what if we, cut out gates and then we can switch out the Pharisee stuff for the Greek stuff? Because I think the Worldly Wisdom is a little better than Pretension. And then John sent it back to me. I was like, dude, I've got it with both the Greeks and the Pharisees, and it's crazy, like the difference that it made. So,
and then we added in the Magicians, and that was when it really kind of jumped to life, because having the Divinations that can stack the deck to set up your draws is actually really important in the way that this all fleshes out and plays in the actual way that it operates. Before, you're just shooting straight draws and hoping, but now you get to actually manipulate what cards you're drawing. And when you're really only looking for a couple specific cards, being able to pick what you're drawing is pretty important.
Yeah.
So this has been Redemption with Jaden, special guest, his brother-in-law John. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks.